Welcome to the Guitar Department. I'm your host, Joe Alton. On this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about open chords. We're going to learn a few songs that involve open chords. We'll have a quick word about capos. I'm going to give you some questions that you might ask when you're signing up for lessons for the first time. We're going to enter the tone zone with our pedal of the week, and we're going to wrap things up with our lick of the week. Welcome to the Guitar Department. All right, so I thought we'd start with the song Jingle Bells. We have the holiday seasons coming up, and this one's pretty ubiquitous. So we're going to teach it in the key of C. We're going to start with an open C chord, and this song involves 4 open chords, and we'll cover them as we get to them. So we're going to start with the C chord, which is the 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, and then your 1st finger on the very 1st fret of the 2nd string, that's the B string. And then to strum, you only strum the bottom 5. You don't want to hit the top string. If you hit the top string, sort of sounds like a truck is driving through your chord. So we want to start with just the 5th string and strum all the way down through the bottom. And now the song Jingle Bells has 2 sections to it, sort of an A section and a B section, we'll refer to them as. So for the A section, we're going to start with the C chord, and we're going to play 4 beats per measure for 3 measures. So 12 total strums, and we're going to do it in this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll notice beats 1 and 3 were sort of a half strum. 1, and then beat 2 went all the way through. Beat 3, and then beat 4. So it'll be 1, 2, 3. Just like that for 12 total strums. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. And at that point, we're going to switch to the F chord. Now, if you've been playing guitar for a little bit already, you might have run into this F chord before, but I've got a trick for you. A normal F chord is not actually an open chord. It's what we call a bar chord. And your 1st finger flattens all the way across all 6 strings. You have to squeeze really hard, and then the other 3 fingers have to curl really well to stay out of the way of the other strings. But what we're going to do is make it a little bit easier, and we're going to do that by leaving off the top and the bottom strings. When you flatten your 1st finger in an F chord, your 1st finger covers 6 strings, but it actually only holds down 3 of those 6 strings. The top, the 1st string, the 2nd string, and the 6th string. So we're going to just hold down the 2nd string, and we're going to mute the other 2, the top string and the bottom string, by using the pads of our fingers to keep them a little bit flatter and just impact those strings a little bit. So when you strum, you get the same sounding F chord that you do when you play a full bar chord F. It's just a little bit easier to play, especially when coming from the chord C, because if you break it down, a couple of the fingers are still in the same place. Your 1st finger stays on the 2nd string, 1st fret. Your ring finger stays on the 3rd fret of the 5th string, and your middle finger is going to move down 1 string to the 2nd string on the 3rd string on the 2nd fret, and your pinky will take the 4th string on the 3rd fret. So from here, we've got 3rd fret, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 1st fret, and that's our F chord. And we're going to spend 2 measures on that, so 8 total strums. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. So, to recap, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then, we go to our 3rd chord, and this is a G chord. Now, there are a number of ways to play a G chord, so if you see something telling you that it's different than the way I'm about to show you, it might also be correct. But here's how we're going to do it. We're going to switch our fingering up. We're going to use all 4 fingers this time. Middle finger will take the top string, 3rd fret, the 6th string. Your pointer finger will take the 5th string on the 2nd fret. The next 2 strings, the 3rd and 4th strings, will both be open. And then on the bottom 2 strings, you've got your third finger on the third fret and your pinky on the third fret. So 3 fingers total on the third fret, and then the pointer finger will be on the second fret. And again, we're going to play this for 2 total measures, 8 total beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And at that point, we're going to go back to C for 1 measure. So that's our whole first phrase, the dashing through the snow portion of the song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Now for our second line, our second phrase, we're going to do essentially the same thing. We're going to play that C chord for another 12 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. Then switch to F for 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Then to G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And then it will go to C for 2 beats. 1, 2, and then to G for 2 more beats. Now, if you have a little bit of trouble getting from C to G that quickly, you can just stay on the G chord, or you can stay on the C chord for that whole measure. But if you don't, it adds a little bit of an accent going into the next part, and the next part is the B section. So it makes sense to have a bit of a transition. But I want to cover everything we've done up to this point. So we're starting with C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, G. And at that point, we're going to start the main chorus of the song, the Jingle Bells, that part. So that'll be on a C chord, our original C chord, for 4 whole measures, 16 total strums. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. At that point, we're going to switch to F, 2, 3, 4, back to C, 1 measure each at this point, C, 2, 3, 4. And it's at this point that we introduce our last new chord. It's a D chord. And if you remember, on our very first episode, we talked about the D chord, but just in case you missed it, here it is again. Our first finger is going to go on the second fret of the third string. We'll have our second finger on the second fret of the first string, and then our third finger on the third fret of the second string. So it makes like a triangle if you think of them as connecting dots here. And you only want to strum the bottom 4 strings, excuse me. So we'll start at our D string and we'll strum down from the D string for our D chord. And again, this is going to last 1 whole measure. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, just like we did on the F and the C just a second ago. And then we're going to switch to G for 1 whole measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. So to recap that whole line, again, this is the first part of the Jingle Bells part. It will be C for 16 total beats, 4 total measures. 1, 2. And then we'll go to F, 1, 2, C, D, and G. And then we'll recap, or we'll start the next line back on C again for another 16 measures, or 16 beats, excuse me. 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, F, C, G, C. And that's the entire chorus. So, to begin at the beginning, that's how you play the chords to Jingle Bells. I thought before we moved on that we'd take a second to talk about capos. This is a capo, and one of the most common questions that I get as a guitar teacher is, what are capos and do I need one? The short answer is no, you don't need one right away, but if you play for long enough, if you start to get serious about playing, or if you are a serious player, you will want a capo eventually, and here's why. What they do is they clamp onto your guitar, and they clamp on in between the frets. In this case, I'm putting it on the 3rd fret, which means that I'm placing it between the 2nd and 3rd frets. And it's holding down all 6 strings onto that 3rd fret, effectively raising the pitch of every string on my guitar. So now I can play the same chords that I would be playing without the capo, but have them sound differently. And here's an example. If I take the capo off and I play these chords, D, G, and A, that's what they sound like. But if I add the capo to the 3rd fret, I've effectively raised all 3 of those chords by what they call 3 half steps, or a minor third, musically speaking. So now my D sounds like this, and my G sounds like this, and then my A sounds like this. Now, if you're learning a song just on guitar, like we're about to, using a capo, you refer to those chords as the way they're fingered. So when I finger this chord, this is a D chord, the way we just learned during Jingle Bells. Musically speaking, it actually rings as a different chord. It's going to ring as an F chord. So if I took the capo off and I played an F chord, those are actually the same notes that I'm playing with the capo when I play a D chord. And I'm mentioning this in case you end up playing with a piano player or another instrumentalist who needs to know what they call the concert pitch of the strings you're playing. For our purposes here, we're going to refer to them as D, G, and A. And that's how you would commonly refer to them. Even though there's a capo that changes the pitch, you would still refer to them as the shapes of the chord they're being played. And the song we're about to learn is Free Falling by Tom Petty, which is a classic song, and it actually only involves those 3 chords. It's a very simple song. That doesn't mean you'll find it easy, but it is a simple one to understand how to play. And we're going to start with the main riff, which is just a D chord, and then a G chord, and then you strum the G chord a second time and go back to the D chord, and then to A. And that is our main riff for Free Falling. You might notice I'm fingering my A using my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, and there's a reason behind that. Commonly, the A is played with your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers, which is a perfectly fine way to play it. But you might notice my pointer finger is quite a ways away from that 2nd fret. So, using my pinky in place of my ring finger and swapping out the other 3 fingers allows me to get that note a little bit closer to its fret and makes the chord just a little bit easier to play. So if you find yourself having trouble with an A chord fitting all those fingers into the 2nd fret, that might be a solution for you, is to swap them out and use your middle ring and pinky fingers instead of your pointer, middle, and ring fingers. It just takes up a little bit less room. So again, our main riff, D, G, and then G, D, A. And that repeats through most of the song. But if you listen closely, there is another part playing underneath that, and we're going to talk about that for just a second here. And that is, it's the same exact chords, but you strum them with a solid, steady downstroke over and over with the same exact rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, repeat. to take that a little bit faster to match the tempo of the song. So those last couple times I added in 1 or 2 upstrokes along the way, which is allowed. When you're playing this song, you can have the freedom to do just downstroke if you find it easier. Obviously, the easiest way to play it is to just do the main riff. Use those chords. Make sure you can get them all to ring out. They're basically just strummed once each. And as you get better and better at it, try playing that secondary part. And that's how you play Free Fallin' by Tom Petty. All right, so a lot of you might have gotten or might be getting your very first guitar for the holiday season. And if you are, you might be thinking about signing up for lessons. And if you're thinking about signing up for lessons, I have a few pieces of advice for you, some questions that you might be asking when you are seeking out a guitar teacher. Not every teacher is the same. In fact, no 2 teachers are the same. So it's important that you ask questions and that you find a teacher that you're comfortable with, who you think can help you accomplish your goals. And that brings me to the most important point, is to mention what your goals are. Do you want to learn to read music? Because some teachers don't teach how to read music. They teach exclusively in tablature. Do you want to not learn to read music? Do you just want to start playing? Is your goal to sit around a campfire and strum campfire songs? Because there are teachers that specialize in that as well. Have you tried other teachers and found something about them that just wasn't quite what you were hoping for? Whatever it is, you should be mentioning that to the person that you're talking to when you're signing up for lessons, wherever you sign up. And there are all sorts of things to consider. Are you wanting to try out for jazz band in high school or middle school? Are you wanting to start a band of your own? Are you wanting to understand music theory? There's a lot of things that can factor in, and most teachers can teach you some of it, but certain ones specialize along the way. If you wanted to take classical, for instance, there are places that specialize in classical guitar playing. There are teachers that specialize in jazz guitar playing that maybe aren't as versed in classical. So make sure you ask as many questions as you can and call around. Find some places that teach. Here in the Des Moines area, there is, for traditional lessons, there's Riemann Music, there's up-tempo music. There are all sorts of places that you can call. You should try calling your local shop, because I promise you they could use your business right now. But there's also less conventional programs, such as the Central Iowa Music Lab or School of Rock out in West Des Moines, where they take students from all different teachers and put them together and have them play songs together as a band. All of these things can factor into your ability to develop as a guitar player. So never take for granted that you're with the right teacher just because you were assigned to them. If you feel like you need something more, or if you feel like you have some specific goals in mind, you should tell the person that you're talking to about lessons everything that you want to be able to do while taking guitar lessons. And I encourage you to sign up, because spots are filling up quickly. All right, now it's time for our lick of the week. If you're working on your lead playing, this is the segment that I'm hoping is really going to help you out. And for this week, we've got a good one. We're going to take the A minor pentatonic scale, which we'll quickly recap here. Starts on the 5th fret of the top string. You're going to go 5, 8, and then on the next 3 strings, it will be 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7. Then we'll go down another one, and it'll be back to 5, 8. And then same thing on the bottom string, 5, 8. And what we're going to do with that scale is we are going to add a sequence through it. Now, if you've never heard of a sequence before, or scale sequencing as a concept, here's essentially what it is. We're going to take a pattern and insert it into that collection of notes. So instead of playing the scale forward like this, we're going to play it up 3 notes, and then we're going to start back 1 note from where we left off and go up 3 more. Just like that, all the way through the scale, except we're going to do it without pausing. So every note will be the same length. And then here it is backwards. So to do it backwards, I just started on the last note of the scale, the 8, and went down 3 notes, and then back 1 note to the 5, and then down 3 notes from there. And that gives us a pretty distinct sound. The great thing about scale sequencing is that you don't have to play the entire sequence. A lot of times in the midst of your improvising, you'll find yourself in a position you just sort of play part of it to transition from one register to the next register. If you're in the lower area of the scale, you can use it to just transition from that lower section. And then if I want to get to, say, this note, rather than just play through the scale, you carry something a little more interesting. It adds texture to your ability to play the scale. So that's our lick of the week, the A minor pentatonic sequence. All right, well now it's time for us to enter the tone zone, and our pedal of the week is the Proco Rat. This is one of the best, most used pedals from the 80s, 90s, and even today. Notable users include Metallica, Tool, Nirvana, Radiohead, Aerosmith. There aren't many guitar effects that you can refer to with both Radiohead and Metallica, but here it is. And the reason is the Proco Rat is one of the most diverse pedals ever created. In terms of an overdrive pedal or a distortion pedal, it's just the gold standard, and here's why. It starts out, I'll give you my clean signal here, we'll shut the pedal off. And if you can see the settings, I've got the distortion turned basically all the way down and the filter turned all the way up. We'll discuss those two in a minute. The volume is flat, essentially, so that when I click it on, it doesn't increase my volume a whole lot. And you can hear it's just got a little bit of breakup in it. So when you start playing, it's got a little bit of crack in it, almost like we've turned the speaker way up, except we're at the same volume we were before. So that's the first feature. That's with the distortion turned most of the way down. If I turn that up, you can hear the effect on the amp there too. That's got a little more than just breakup. That's full-on distortion. Great for that rock sound that we hear all the time with so many different styles of music. But it keeps going from there. If we turn it up even more, and you can hear that hum coming through. It's almost like a fuzz tone. And that's really the appeal of the Rat, is that it was billed originally as the breakup to fuzz pedal. So you can do everything from having that sort of bluesy, just sort of crack sound when you hit the notes a little extra hard, and you can have that full-on fuzz tone if you wanted to play Seven Nation Army or American Woman or something like that. It'll still get you pretty close to that sound. Most distortion pedals just don't go that far. They either have one or the other, but this one found a way to cover all of them, and it's still got some tonal range yet to go. We'll take this back down to about the half level, and then this filter option, the middle knob here, right now I've got it pinned all the way at what I suppose would be considered 10. It doesn't have numbers, but if I take that down to about 5, it actually gets brighter on me. So that filter knob goes a long way towards controlling your overall tone. Most distortion pedals have some sort of tone knob on them, but this filter actually works in the opposite direction. When you turn it all the way to the left, it's as bright as your guitar will get. And when you turn it all the way to the right, that's as dark as it will get. You can hear the difference just in those two settings. Some people actually turn the distortion most of the way down so they can just use the filter knob on the Proco Rat. This is one of the most diverse pedals ever made, and it makes a great addition to any pedal board, the Proco Rat. And that's our pedal of the week. Well, thank you for tuning into the Guitar Department. Be sure to find us on Facebook, facebook.com/The Guitar Department. I'd like to thank our producer, Bryce, and our cameraman, Pat. My name is Joe Alton. I'd like to thank Riemann Music for helping us shoot and for supplying the acoustic guitar and the Proco Rat, our pedal of the week. Be sure to join us next time on the Guitar Department. Happy holidays out there.